On this episode of Locked On Angels, it's a Fan Mail Friday, and we're answering your questions. What's going on with Taylor Ward and Joe Adell at the plate? And can the Angels make a deal with the Orioles for some of their top prospects? We've got the answers to these and so much more. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is. And yes, we are. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. If you want to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, there's a couple things that you can do for us. First of all, leave us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Become a Locked On every day or with us. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be part of the conversation by leaving a comment below the video. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Tax Network USA. Did you know it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed professionals by calling 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. Thanks for being here for today's episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you normally. However, it's just me today, John Frisch. I'm one half of the Super Halo Bros and one half of Locked On Angels. My brother Mike and his son are headed to a concert, and so I am taking care of today's episode. It's going to be a solo show, but I'm here to answer all of your questions. I feel like you're here with me. You're my co-host today because I'm answering your questions. Of course, Mike and I have been at Locked On Angels now for 3 years. This is our third season here on the show, and we're here 5 days a week for you, Monday through Friday. On today's show, it is a Fan Mail Friday. I've got questions from our comment section on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So I got questions from all three platforms today, including this one from Sleepyheads on YouTube, who asked the question, hey, John and Mike, would it be time to talk about Ward's decline this season? He looks absolutely disinterested at times, whether at the plate or on the field. At times, it looks like he even has a longer golf swing than Matt Thaiss. Maybe he's trying to drive down his trade value in order to not have to move to another house or another city mid-season. Thanks, Sleepyheads, for your question. I think it's worth looking into. What's going on with Taylor Ward? Now, it's definitely not him trying to lower his trade value because he's still arbitration eligible. So it would be to his benefit to perform well and, have some incentive for the team to increase his salary next year. Well, what's wrong with him? Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think the back issue that's been plaguing him this month, I think it might go back even to the beginning of June. He was DHing there for a while, just strictly DHing because of the back issue. And here's the thing. He's had bad results on the balls that he's put in play so far this month, including 16 strikeouts. Now, that's not in play. That's him swinging and missing. But he's got 10 ground outs and 21 pop outs / line outs / flyouts. So a lot of soft flyouts for Taylor Ward, whether they're popped up or they're hit out to the outfield. 21 of those. Now, let's look at the difference between his first month and this month. The first month being, of course, March, a little bit of March, and April. Remember, he had a great start to the season. We were like, oh, Taylor Ward is back. But let me talk about his best month versus June, his worst month. The line drive percentage, meaning he's hit the ball hard at a good launch angle. It's not too high. It's not a ground ball. In March and April, it was 24.7%. This month in June, 2.8%. So essentially, he's barely hitting line drives this month. The fly ball percentage. Now, this one, I think, speaks volumes. In March and April, it was 43%. In June, it's 66.7%. So a lot of fly balls up in the air. Hard contact in March and April was 41.9%. In June, that's down to 36.1%. Listen to this. The batting average on balls in play, or BABIP, as we like to call it. In March and April, it was 302. In June, the batting average on balls in play for Taylor Ward is 114. So not great. Now, I think there's a couple of things that you could point to that I did a little investigating into, and that was the bat speed and the swing length. Taylor Ward, of course, does not have the highest bat speed, but you would think that a higher bat speed would result in more hard contact. But surprisingly, his bat speed, the way he's swinging his bat right now, was higher this month in June than in March and April. And he's also been a little longer in the swing, in the strike zone as well. So when Sleepyhead says it looks like Matt Thaiss up there, yeah, he is taking a little longer, loopier swing. But it could be that the back issue is still causing him to compensate, and maybe he thinks he needs to swing harder. But also it could be that little bit longer of a swing. But listen, no matter how you slice it, that combination has led to less hard contact, less line drives, and more soft flyouts. So perhaps Taylor Ward doesn't need to be swinging as hard as he thinks he does, because if you go back to that first month, he really wasn't swinging it all that hard and was making a lot of great contact. So perhaps the back issue, he's thinking, oh, I got to swing at full strength because my back is hurting and I'm compensating. I think that might be going on with Taylor Ward. Glenn Thomas on YouTube says, when do you predict Nelson Rada makes it to the show? Well, MLB.com has him projected to be up with the team in 2026. He's still just 18 years old. So that puts him at about 20 years old if he were to make his debut in 2026. But I don't think there's a rush to get him up to the majors. And here's why. In the 2022 Dominican Summer League, he bat .311 and had an .885 OPS. With the 66ers in San Bernardino last year, he had a .276 average and a .742 OPS. And with the Trash Pandas this year, he has a .223 average and a .554 OPS. Now, we all know Nelson Rada's bread and butter is his speed, the ability to steal bags, but he's struggling to get on base this year. He's got a .295 on base percentage, 10 walks to 61 strikeouts in AA. I think he might be a little overmatched because not everybody in AA is 18 years old. They're probably 21 to 23 in that range. He did skip high A Tri-City Dust Devils, so he didn't stop in high A ball. He went from Inland Empire to AA. So I predict that maybe 2027, maybe even 2028 would be more likely in terms of him becoming an everyday starter for the Angels, but they don't need to start that service time clock on him so soon. You see that happen with guys like Reed Detmers, who had their service clocks started really early in their career when they're really young. And it's great to have young players, but it also means that they are out of the arbitration team control window sooner. And that gives, Nelson Rada about 3 more seasons to do some more work in the minors and maybe catch up to AA. Sydney Scott Author on YouTube says the losses would be easier to take if this team was at least consistent in their performance. Seems like they're either on fire or ice cold. Has the ship sailed for this season, or can the Angels get themselves right eventually? Well, Sydney Scott, if you're talking about the team making it to the playoffs, that ship has sailed. Now, can they be a winning team? I don't think so. Can they be a 500 team? That would take a lot too. So I think the ship has sailed on them having a winning record this year. However, I think what we are going to see is that they do have more consistency over the course of the year. We're about almost halfway through the season, right? And to see them be so back and forth, like we saw with the Brewers. They had a great game on Monday, then their bats went quiet on Wednesday. So all of that to say, I think that we will start to see consistency from them because of basically experience. But to see them be so back and forth, yeah, that is tough to watch. And unfortunately, the hopes of going anywhere this season, I think those hopes have sailed. Marshall Armstrong says, does Victor Medeiros stay a starter or does he move to the pen? What about Jorge Marcheco and Barrett Kent? Is Camden Minacci our closer of the future? Well, let me talk about each of those guys. Victor Medeiros, his biggest issue right now is command. So if he stays a starter, that's something he's going to need to work on and develop. Now, the good news is that he is only 22, So there is time for him. Jorge Macheco, they say he's got good command, a funky delivery, deceptive, not a lot of velocity. Does that remind you of anybody other than the funky delivery? Maybe a Jared Weaver type. Maybe he can be a starter who gets by on the fact that he's so deceptive. That's promising. Barrett Kent, I believe, definitely sticks as a starter. And then Cam Minacci, who just got promoted to Double-A yesterday, definitely can see him as an 8th inning guy, maybe a 9th inning guy. He's got a good fastball slider combo. The separation of speeds is great on his fastball and slider, but he probably needs that third pitch, as we've seen with like a Ben Joyce. They need to be more than velo and off speed. They need another pitch to kind of fool guys up there. What do you think of Joe Adell, says Steve G on YouTube. He looks so overmatched at the plate. How long can we keep riding with him? He looks like he's struggling terribly at the plate. Just wanted to say that. John and Mike, keep up the great work. Steve, thank you for the kind words there. Now, I think the Angels can ride with Joe Adell as long as they want to, because they aren't going anywhere. And if you want to see him develop over this full season, I really think that's it, guys. I think we have to give him all of 2024 so that we all look back and go, okay, that's probably who Joe Adell is, because I don't think we've got the full picture of who Joe Adell is. Now, something that is clear to me is Joe Adell's swing length. I talked about Taylor Ward's earlier. In fact, with Joe Adell on Baseball Savant, it's easy to see that during his huge April that he had a shorter, more compact swing, not as loopy, not as long. Now he's chasing a lot more. In June, it's a lot longer of a swing. Something that he's actually done a lot over the course of his career leads to a lot of strikeouts. So Joe Adell has kind of fallen into old habits, but I also think that's easily fixable. And I also think it's not anything for us to worry about, considering these guys have kind of admitted to their faults and their mistakes. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit later with the offense, but the young guys are still working on the adjustments of the things that they ought to be doing. And when they do them, they have success, like Joe Adell did earlier this season. He looked a lot more Trout-like in his swing, and now he's kind of gone back to that big loopy swing. So I think that's what's going on with Joe Adell. I think the Angels have as much time with him as they need, but if you want to give him a fair assessment, let's wait until the end of 2024 when he finally has a full season worth of baseball behind him. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. The Angels are playing the Dodgers in LA, 7:10 Pacific time tonight. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, can the Angels trade Tyler Anderson to the Orioles and net some of their big prospects? We're going to talk about it, and I think I might have convinced myself. So I'll share that with you coming up here in just a minute. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Stitch Fix. Guys, it's time to upgrade that wardrobe. Throw out the old t-shirts, the worn out pants, and let our friends at Stitch Fix help you look good. With Stitch Fix, it's easy to upgrade your style with the help of a professional stylist. I know that I need that. That helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. Here's how it works. Just give Stitch Fix stylist your size, your style, and your budget preferences, and they send you 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works and what you like, and then you send the rest back. And the good news, shippings, returns, exchanges, those are always free, and there's no subscription required. Stitch Fix makes it super, super easy. No need to go shop and look around. You can save time and effort and just order from Stitch Fix. Now's the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/MLB, because you can get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes, and it's for a limited time. So take them up on it. stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off, $25 off of your first 4 fixes. stitchfix.com/MLB. You must redeem within 7 days of signing up. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Everydayers, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, because it's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed just for you to bring you the biggest stories across the sports world. It brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team every day, the Angels playing the Dodgers tonight at Dodger Stadium, 7:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Now we're going to Twitter with some Twitter questions from our Twitter followers. Let's check out this question from Chuck and Duck Meat. He said, what are your thoughts on our Halo fan base? I know we've been a losing team for a long time now, but even when we were winning in the early 2000s, we let other teams' fan bases come in and take over the Big A. It's truly embarrassing as a diehard Angels fan. Chuck, I feel you, and I get it. But look, the marketing machine of other teams like the Yankees or Red Sox or Dodgers, look, there's a reason why they have the largest fan bases, because they're some of the oldest teams around. And while the Angels have a loyal, passionate fan base, you're right. Even when they were winning in the early 2000s, and I remember going to a lot of those games in the late 2000s, early 2010s too, you kind of saw a lot of like for the audio people, I'm on the phone right now, like just kind of hanging out, having a good time. And part of me thinks that's OC culture. We're very laid back. They're very calm, cool, and collected. And look, it's a bunch of surfers, right? No, I know it's more than that. But what I'm saying is, I just think that there is something to the, ironically, I'm saying this, the Disney-like power of Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, those teams that show up in droves. Now, it's easy for Dodgers to show up because they're all over Southern California. But look, we've done the same thing to the Rays. We've done the same thing to the Padres. We've done the same thing to the Diamondbacks. There's a lot of Angels fans in those stadiums. And when they weren't great, the Angel fans dominated those stadiums as well. So all that to say, I know it's frustrating. I don't think it's an indictment on our fan base. I just think that it's very rare for those other teams to come to Angel Stadium, and it's cheap. They're good ticket prices, even though the ticket prices go up for those games. All that to say, I don't have a criticism about that. It sucks. I get it, but it's kind of always been that way. And for that reason, it hasn't really bothered me. So that's just kind of my opinion on it. E-Doggius on Twitter said, after the Angels lose 100 games this year and Perry is out of a job, does Wash lose his job to E-Doggius? You got a crystal ball over there? What could next season look like, given that they may be major sellers at the deadline? Is a rebuild on the horizon finally? Well, let me address that second part. They're not going to call it a rebuild, but if they do the right thing and trade the expiring contracts and maybe even contracts like Tyler Anderson, maybe Luis Rengifo if they don't extend him, the Angels could get a lot in return this trade deadline. And I look at what they did yesterday with moving a bunch of bullpen arms up from high A to double A. My theory is they're putting themselves in a position to trade off the expiring bullpen contracts, in addition to maybe like a Drury, that sort of thing, so that they can replenish the major league roster with the guys who will graduate from double A. So the high A guys are coming into double A to replace the guys who will eventually be up with the club later this season. I don't think they're going to lose 100 games. That's just me. Now, will it be 99? Maybe, but they've never lost 100 games. And I don't think this year it's going to be that way easier either, especially with the easier strength of schedule. So call me a Halo honk or whatever you want to call me, but I don't think they're going to lose 100 games. That's just me. I don't think they're going to do it. GW on Twitter says, when we finally get a new competent owner, which player numbers should immediately be retired? That one's easy. 15, 16. And it's long overdue. I know Sam Blum and Connor Grossman talked about this on their podcast the other day, but it's true. 15 and 16. Salmon and Anderson need to be retired. And Artie hasn't done it. He hasn't retired any numbers. And so I think it's really silly. Maybe even 36, in my opinion, because Weaver was loyal to this team. I might be a Weaver stan, a Weaver honk, but you know what? I think that'd be a great number to retire as well. Nick Vlahakis says, if everyone currently injured miraculously came back this weekend, who do you think stays? Who do you think gets DFA'd? And who do you think gets traded? Well, the Angels have a little bit of room to do some things. They've got Stefanik, who could go down next, and I think that he will, unfortunately, because I like to see that guy play. But when Sano comes back, I think Stefanik will be sent down. He's still got options, fortunately. Now, when Trout or Rendon comes back, whoever gets back first, don't wait up. Then I think it's Willie Calhoun, who will probably have to be DFA'd because he is out of options. I'd imagine that if he passes through the system of waivers, that he'll stay with the Angels, but he could get picked up somewhere else because he's had a decent season. Somebody could use him. At that point, after Calhoun, it gets a little tricky because whether Trout or Rendon comes back, that leaves the other one left to come back. So does that mean Guillorme goes? He's an infielder. He kind of feels a little excessive at that point. They traded for him, so I don't know if they are so keen to get rid of him so quickly. He's been great, by the way. Batting average has been great. The glove has been great. Maybe they make room by trading somebody like Kevin Pillar, which I hope they do, because imagine the great pieces you could get back for Kevin Pillar because he's having such an incredible season. So that's kind of the order I see things happening, the order of events there, Nick. So that's kind of what I imagine. Jay Cano 89 says, is there something to say about the way the Angels are marketing their current players? Why are Ohapi, Rengifo, Detmers, Neto, Adele, Soriano, Joyce so unknown? The team store is still stocked with Ohtani, Trout, and Rendon merch. Where's the effort? I am surprised, and yet I'm not surprised that there's still Ohtani merch in the team store. That's just the way they do business in Anaheim. Like I said it the other day, they can't see past the end of their nose, Artie Moreno and John Carpino. As far as the young guys, I think that marketing them is not going to be something the Angels do well at all. And I also don't think that they ever marketed Trout that well, to be honest. And remember, there was all those conversations about like, well, is Trout the face of baseball? He doesn't act like it. He's not a big personality. Well, I think some of that had to do with the fact that maybe the Angels didn't market him as well. But I will say, maybe after this season, we'll start seeing more of the young guys take center stage. I think the Angels are deathly afraid right now to market such a young team that, hardcore fans are excited about. But the Angels got that taste of widespread mainstream appeal because of Ohtani and Trout the last couple of years. And so they're afraid to go back to the homegrown talent. I don't know if there's something to that. I don't know if that's what they're clinging on to. But Jay Cano, 89, I agree that the young guys deserve a lot more attention and a lot more respect than they're getting. And look, I hope that they get more merch with their names on it because those guys certainly deserve it. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Tax Network USA. Listen, friends, just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. Even if you have complicated taxes, Tax Network USA can help you with that. The IRS, by the way, they can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. The licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA, let them go to bat for you. And with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA, get this, has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning. You guys know that Mike and I, we have complicated tax situations. My wife started her own business last year. That was complicated. We were fortunate enough to have somebody on our side. And Tax Network USA wants to be on your side. Maybe you even hit that parlay this season and you need help filing it correctly. They are here for you. All you have to do is call 1-800-549 or visit Tax Network USA's website, tnusa.com, tnusa.com/lockedon. That's tnusa.com/lockedon. We're getting into our final set of questions. These all come from Instagram, and I'm really excited about this. Briley22 on Instagram said, the Angels should trade Tyler Anderson to the Orioles. My dream is that they would be able to pry Kobe Mayo, or more realistically, Connor Norby. So let me tell you about this trade idea from Briley22. Now, the prospects that he's talking about here are Kobe Mayo, who's exciting. He could be the power corner infielder / third baseman that the Angels could be looking for. The Angels do like their guys that hit, and Connor Norby could be their answer for the future at second base. And so either one is really a good answer, but the more likely candidate, I would say, is probably Connor Norby, which, look, would still be an excellent return if the Orioles want Tyler Anderson to get to the playoffs. I actually put this comparison together, and I have a visual on the screen for you. Let me get that pulled up here because I spent a lot of time on it. It's really good. But I want to share it with you because I think there's a trade comp that might make sense and might show that Tyler Anderson for either one or both of those guys is not so far-fetched. So let me show you this trade comparison here, and I'll explain it to you if you're listening on the audio. Now, just last year, the Mets traded Justin Verlander to the Astros for Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, two prospects in the Astros system. Verlander signed a 2-year, $86.6 million deal at age 40, you guys. The Mets paid for Verlander's 2023. They paid the entire $43.3 million. Then they'll pay $25 million this year. So the Astros got a discount there. But in return, the Mets got Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, who are now the number 2 and number 4 top prospects in the Mets system. So consider this. Just indulge me for a minute. Tyler Anderson's making $13 million a year. Right now, he's got a year and a half of control. He's 34 years old, while Verlander was 40 at the time of last year's trade. Anderson doesn't get hurt, and Verlander's been hurt. And under $20 million owed to a veteran that gives you a reliable starter and possibly the Orioles 2 chances to get to the playoffs this year and next. Also consider the Orioles rotation is really hurt right now. They're broken. They just lost Kyle Bradish to Tommy John surgery. The Angels curse follows him, the Angels Tommy John curse. And Connor Norby and Colby Mayo, they're kind of positionally blocked. There's not room in that infield with the amazing talent the Orioles already have. So the point is, Mayo and Norby are on the cusp of making it to the majors and would be league ready probably next year. If not at the end of this season, they would be playing in the majors with the Angels. The Angels would be super dumb if they don't trade Tyler Anderson to the Orioles, about maybe seeing about one of them, if not both. I don't know if the Angels can do both, but considering what the Mets got for Justin Verlander last year, I don't see why they couldn't get Tyler Anderson to get them one of those guys, if not both. Heck, maybe you even cover part of Anderson's salary. It's only $13 million. And if that's what it takes to get Colby Mayo and Connor Norby, that changes the whole outlook of your lineup. So that's, just indulge me there for a little bit, because I think that it's actually pretty feasible at the end of the day. Listen, Nicole says, what's the reason for the inconsistency when it comes to the offense? Age, Johnny Washington. Now, this is funny. I'm glad, Cole, you brought this up, because the Angels just, or I should say, Jeff Fletcher just had an article about Zach Neto and his leg kick. We talked about that on yesterday's show. And Zach Neto said, you know, Washington told me, Johnny Wash told me what to do during spring training, and I kind of got away from it to start the season. And I think at the end of the day, it kind of chalks it up to age and inexperience and youth, because at the same time, there was an article that came out yesterday from Jeff Fletcher about how the guys have not been batting above 5, even though Ohapi and Neto are some of the best hitters on the team right now. They're not ready to be in the 2 through 4 spots because they let the moment get to them. They let that spot in the lineup overwhelm them, and they even admitted to it. And Logan O'Hoppe said, you hope that you don't change your approach, but it all kind of goes out the window when you're batting cleanup. And that's kind of what I think is going on with this Angels team right now. I think they're all just young. I think they're getting away from the things that work for them. Like we talked about with Joe Adell, he had a nice compact swing and he kind of reverted to the long loopy swing that brings him a lot of strikeouts. So I think it's age at the end of the day. Darcy Carroll says, with Silseth coming back soon, is it time to send Canning down or move him to the bullpen? Actually, I don't think they're going to have to make any moves because they still have Reed Detmer's spot in the rotation for Silseth to take over right now. So I don't think they're going to have to move Canning or anybody down. Canning moving to the pen, I think he would be the first candidate if this rotation were to get too full. But with a pending trade of Tyler Anderson, I'm hoping he's never going to be better than he is right now, guys. So Tyler Anderson has to be traded, and they got to go after those Orioles prospects. That's my opinion. Mario from the Barrio, I love it, on Instagram says, who plays first base when Miguel Sano comes back, him or Nolan Shonowell? Well, I actually think Sano is going to play more third base, but he can also play first base, of course. It does give them the chance to sit Nolan every now and then. He's been playing a lot of games. They also have Drury, who covers second and first. So they'll have a lot more infield flexibility, but I don't think anybody really loses their spot because of it. He might DH more often than Sano plays the field, actually. Ian Alexander says, is there any hope for the future? It's tough to see if there is. Look, Ian, I get it. And yeah, it's tough to see right now. But the hope is already 78 years old. He's not going to be around forever. He's not going to be running this team forever. I always say it. We were fans before Artie Moreno. We'll be fans after Artie Moreno. I get it. The sale, when they said they were going to sell, it was like the greatest day of our lives. And then they took it back from us. So I just say, look to the young guys, give them this full season. Hopefully, this is my hope. I'm hanging my hat on this hope. They make some good moves at the deadline, before the deadline, because there's a lot of potential to restock not only their farm, but possibly even the major league team. Like I said, Kobe Mayo, Connor Norby, they're ready for the majors, and they really should look into finding trades like that, even if it costs them an Anderson, maybe a Rengifo, maybe a Taylor Ward. I think those guys, you got to listen on all of them, but I definitely think Tyler Anderson needs to be traded. So I think the hope, if you want to have any hope, Ian, is look to the draft where they have 4 top 100 picks, and then look to the trade deadline to see what they do this season. Hey, I want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. You can catch the Angels playing the Dodgers tonight at Dodger Stadium, 7:10 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM or the SXM app. Just search Angels. Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and also at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. On Monday's show, Mike's going to be back with me. The Angels have 2 games against the Dodgers this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, with an off day on Sunday. So we will recap that weekend series for you on Monday. We'll have ourselves a little Angels-Dodgers, maybe a little Ohtani discussion on Monday as well, because it's been a few months now. We're almost halfway through the season. We'll do a little Angel fan Ohtani check-in on Monday as well. Until then, my name is John. My brother Mike will be back with us on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Monday.